Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mormonish. I'm Rebecca,
And I'm Landon.
and this is a very special episode. I know I say that almost every time, don't I, Landon?
You do.
I do, but I really do mean it this time, honestly. And this has been, I would say, a labor of love that we have been trying to put together for, I think, at least 2 months. Has it been that long?
Probably at least that. Yeah. We
Yeah.
started a while ago trying to get this all put together.
Yeah. There's a lot of moving pieces to this as we sort of came up with this idea of what we wanted to present. And we had to get some things in place and we had to get some people to help us. But we really want to present this to you guys today. And we think it's going to be really important and we think it might move the needle a little bit. I'm hoping.
We hope so. We hope it shed some light on a problem that's a big problem in the church and affects a lot of lives. And so we wanted to shine a little bit of light on it and see if that changes things.
Yep, that's all we can do, right? Raise awareness. That's it. So we have a couple slides to begin with, and then we're going to go into what we're doing. So today we're going to be talking about LGBTQ experiences in the LDS church. And by this, we mean people that are members of the church, want to attend, want to fully participate, and be a part of the church.
Yeah, that's correct. These are people who have a great desire to be a part of the church. They have a spiritual uh, yearning to worship, and they have a yearning to remain LDS.
Mhm.
We're going to be talking to four couples. These are same-sex couples who, in this case, they're all married, some just recently, some have been married for quite some time. And we wanted to compare the different experiences that they had and see, you would think it would be fairly consistent across the board, but we wanted to check and see what kind of experiences they were having.
That's right. And so if we go to our next slide, we'll kind of explain to you how this idea even came to us. And I feel like a lot of you probably were thinking along these lines based on some things that have happened in the last month or so. So our slide says, for those of you that are listening, it all started with Aaron Sherinian, and it did. This gentleman was called to be the new church spokesman. He was called on January 3rd of this year. We've done a couple podcasts and we mentioned it quite a bit. As soon as he was called and his bio got out there, people started pointing to the fact that he is openly an ally. There are pictures, as you can see there, he's at a pride parade. His posts are very openly supportive of the LGBTQ community. So a lot of us thought, this is amazing. What an incredible person and what an interesting choice for the top spokesman for the LDS church. A lot of us looked at this in a very hopeful way that maybe it meant the church was leaning a certain direction. The more progressive Mormons were like, this is awesome. Well, if we go to our next slide, it really set off just this, sort of it shone a light on the conservative Orthodox Mormons versus the progressive Mormons and their hopes and what they were thinking. So a lot of podcasts popped up from the more faithful side saying, one of the podcasts said, he has pronouns, listed on his LinkedIn. I mean, they were just saying, this is not our church, that this ally is going to be the church spokesman. And of course, this is a whole different issue. We've done a podcast on this. To this date that we know of, Aaron Sherinian has not made a statement or even been visible at all as far as representing the church. So that's a whole nother issue that we've talked about before. But one thing that came out of all these different podcasts is the more faithful podcasts pointing out places in the church where there seemed to be sort of incongruencies as far as how the LGBT community was, accepted, what they were allowed to do. Is that how you kind of saw it?
Yeah, they called out, and I think specifically a few of these guys, called for that they shouldn't be involved at all in the
Right.
church. And yet here we have an ally who's the spokesman. He comes in, everyone's waiting to see what he has to say, and it looks like he's been completely silenced and shut down. We did call the church, we did check, and he is in that position. He does go to work, yet he doesn't seem to
Yeah.
comment on anything at this point. So effectively, he has been shut down. So I think by this point, what are we, 4 months in?
Yeah.
That he's effectively been silenced. We know where the church is going. If you're an ally of the church, if you're an ally, you're not going to be allowed to speak in the church and say anything in support of the LGBTQ movement. We're just
Yeah.
not seeing it.
No,
So
and it was a very mixed message
yeah,
that we sort of saw there. And if we go to our next slide, the more Orthodox podcast had started to point out places where they were confused about what the church was doing. They were confused by Aaron Sherinian, an ally. They were confused by different podcasts where they celebrate, transgender individuals, where they invited a queer woman onto the stage with the Relief Society presidency at Women's Conference. They were confused, especially by sort of a LDS celebrity, former Cosmo the Cougar, right? Charlie Bird, who is married. We have a picture here. And in this picture, he's posing with, I believe that's a former Young Women's President, or anyway,
she might be active. I swear I
oh, maybe
saw
she
that
is.
lady on conference
Okay.
yesterday.
Yeah,
I thought she was one of the
maybe.
ones standing there. So
But the point is that it was confusing, I think, to everyone, that there seemed to be different treatment of different people and no clear message at all from the top. And of course, one of the things that came out of all these different podcasts, and again, we did podcasts about it, progressive Orthodox Mormons did podcasts about this, just seemingly different kinds of treatment, was that Charlie Bird and his husband do attend a ward, they do have a calling, and they do take the sacrament. And so in social media, people are like, well, I know people that are married and that's not their situation. Other people said, I do know people that are married and it is their situation. So we thought, I wonder if we could talk to some couples who are LDS, who are in same-sex marriages, and just find out exactly what their experience is, because it seems to be very varied. So let's go to our next slide. Yeah. Oh, and other people that I forgot about this. Yeah. So we have Ed Smart gets married, but he leaves the church. We have David Archuleta. He comes out and says, I am going to pursue romantic relationships. He's gone and I think very mistreated. Then you have Tom Christofferson, who I believe also came out and said, I am interested in pursuing romantic relationships, but he is in the church. So do you start to see what we're saying? It's very confusing. And if it's confusing to us, imagine how confusing it is to the LGBTQ community and their friends and their family. Like there's no answer. You have no idea how you will be treated as you move forward with your very important life decisions.
yeah, one way or the other, the message is either mixed or it's not getting out there clearly, because we're seeing two completely different things happening. We've got people who say, I can't take the sacrament, I'm being excommunicated for these, and other people who are completely welcomed and have all these callings. So that's what led to this podcast. We're going, what is it? Let's go out there. Let's find some people who have had these experiences, not the famous people. Let's go find the common member and find out what's happening out there.
That's right. So let's go to, I think, our final slide. Okay. So again, Charlie Bird and his husband, and that's a picture of them, wonderful couple. And they have shared their experience pretty publicly that they have callings, activities committee, I think they said, and take the sacrament. So,
and they have a podcast and are actually podcasting that this is their experience.
Right.
Which, one of our questions is this misleading? Is this their experience, or is this the standard experience for LGBTQ couples in the church, or is this a special circumstance in the church?
Special treatment, which makes it even more confusing to people. And let's go to our next slide. So what we decided we would try to do is bring you real stories from the active Mormon LGBTQ married community. So we reached out to a wonderful friend that we have named Brian. Thank you so much, Brian. And he put us in touch, or he kind of got our message out there. Like there's this podcast out there. They'd like to communicate, with some couples and just hear their stories. And we had an overwhelming response. And I've said it before, our favorite part of podcasting is just the people that we get to meet and the people that we get to interact with. And this has just been an incredible couple weeks. as we talk to these amazing couples and hear their story. It's been extremely emotional as we get to know these people. We care about these people. They're wonderful as we interact back and forth, texting and calling and filming with them just to hear their stories. And I know that you guys are going to be incredibly impacted too. And of course, our aim is just to let you hear from people who are living this and what is happening to them. And then, of course, we'll wrap up at the end after we talk to these 4 couples and do a little bit of our own commentary to kind of bring it all together. But the main focus is just these wonderful people. Now, we will say up front that some of them chose to use an avatar or to not be on the screen. And everyone has their own personal reasons. When you hear their stories, I think you will understand. And so that doesn't mean anything that they're not forthcoming or not being truthful. It helps them be more truthful because they don't have to worry about any backlash in their particular situations. So we have seen and talked to all of these people, but in this case, just for privacy and consent, they 2 of the people that we're going to be talking to have chosen an avatar and have chosen not to be on screen and to use a pseudonym. And we completely respect that. But just to let our viewers and listeners know, Landon and I have communicated and seen these are real people with real stories, and they have to be able to feel safe to tell them in a way that makes them comfortable.
And we should say, and Brian was a fantastic help with us on this because we were looking for a very specific, some specific qualifications. We wanted to find couples that actually wanted to be in the church. We didn't want people who had left and who were angry and were trying to get even. We wanted people who either were actively attending church currently or wanted to actively be attending church currently, but we're not allowed to. So we were looking specifically for couples who wanted to be part of the church. And in some cases, you know, we've heard stories of people who were perhaps taking the sacrament and who perhaps, you know, according to the stories we had callings. This became a little tricky because we didn't want to have those people on and have them lose that because they came on and told us that that's what was happening. And so in some cases, some of those people chose not to speak to us on camera. But so we did talk to one couple that confirmed that they were very similar to Charlie Bird, that they had a similar experience. The other couples that we talked to were kind of across the spectrum. And so that's what we wanted to point out here is that of those who want to attend, there seems to be quite a diverse reaction and how they were treated in different cases.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because it's true. We did talk to people that after we shared our mission of this, decided it was not for them, and rightly so. And we did talk to a married couple who is in a ward who are taking the sacrament and do have a calling. They chose not to participate. And of course, we understand all the reasons why they would not. So, and again, as you watch this, and it's such a good point. I'm so glad you brought this up, Landon. These are people that want to be in the church. So there's no point in the comments or anything to say, just get out, right? If somebody would have that perspective. No, you have to respect what people want to do. And all of these people love the church and wish they could participate fully. And that's what we're going to show here. So we have to meet all these couples where they are and respect their life journey and what they really wish could happen for them and for their family. So I think you guys are just going to find this fascinating. So we're just going to jump right in. And the first couple that we're going to talk to, oh my gosh, we love these guys. They are amazing. We have Austin and Dallin, newly married. And so we're really excited to introduce you guys to them as we start off the podcast. So now we would like to welcome to the podcast, Austin and Dallin. How are you guys?
Hey, we're doing awesome. We're happy to be here.
Oh, we're so happy to have you here. We just love this. We just love talking to people and getting to get to know them better and to hear their stories. So why don't you guys just introduce yourself, tell everybody who you are, and then we'll kind of start talking.
Sure. I am Austin. I am 28 years old, almost 27. And I realized that I was a little different probably around 10 or 11. Grew up and born in the church. Grew up in the church my whole entire life. Came out probably around 13, 14 to close friends, and then really came out to everyone right after my mission, probably 19 years old.
So that was after your mission.
After my mission, yep.
So you went early, you went right at 18.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Fantastic.
Where did you serve?
I served in Scottsdale, Arizona, Spanish speaking.
Oh.
And it was a beautiful experience. It was exactly what I needed.
Oh, that's great.
My dad always says the $1 million experience you'd never pay a dime for. So.
That's it. I had a son who served in the Tempe, Arizona mission, and he just loved it. Absolutely loved it. So, and I loved it too, because he was one day away by Amazon Prime. You know, he was close. You hear the horror stories of the kids, right? The other across the country, and the parents are like, "Oh," I'm like, "Nope, Amazon Prime. Here you go."
That's awesome.
That's wonderful. And what about you, Dallin?
I'm Dallin. I don't know. What about me?
I'm who I am. Yeah, no, I get that. How did you guys meet? How about that question? That's always a good one.
A fun one for us.
Okay.
Our dads were best friends in high school, and so our families kind of grew up together. I have to find a picture. We do have some fun pictures of like going to Disneyland together.
So you've been friends since you were like teenagers. If your family is kind of connected,
even littler, like we knew each other.
Yeah.
When we were like toddlers and super young. Yeah. So our families like grew up together.
They'd always joke about my older sister and him getting together.
So I bet you do have those pictures hanging out. Oh, that's
they were close. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a great story. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Did you serve a mission, Dallin?
I did serve a mission. I was a service missionary at the St. George, mostly at the Family Search Center, but also like the DI and the temple and some other things.
Oh, that's very cool. That's excellent.
Fantastic. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And you two are recently married, correct?
We are. We're recently married.
Congratulations. They're like, yeah.
So like in the last month, we're talking, right?
It was, February.
Weekday,
Oh my gosh. That is amazing. Yeah. That is incredible.
Super excited. We're still Twitter pated and stuff, but we've been together 5 years. We're coming into our 6th year. And so we've been dating for that time and then recently got married. But we both grew up in the church, and we're kind of back and forth in our church activity. When we first started dating, we were really active. We moved in together probably a year-ish after we started dating, about a year. And the first bishop we had, he was awesome. He gave us callings. We were ministering brothers. We had ministering families. We were welcomed basically into full fellowship, but we had been asked not to take the sacrament. But otherwise, we were treated as full members. I was the ward organist, and we had a really good experience. Whenever I move into a new ward, even before Dallin and I were dating, I would always go in to the bishop and kind of give him the rundown, the talk, like, hey, this is who I am. This is where I'm at. I know that puts you as a bishop in a difficult spot, but I want you to know I'm here to worship and here to be a part of the ward. And ultimately, you have the keys to the ward. So wherever you see us fitting in, we're here to be here.
And I'm sure as soon as they heard I'm also an organist, they're like, oh, yes, please.
I did. Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
I think I've been the ward organist in every ward I've been in after my mission. So it's fun calling. But
how many different wards have you been in, and have you seen a consistency in the way that it's that you're treated, or has it been all over the board?
It's kind of been all over the board. The common phrase I would say is the bishop roulette.
Yeah, and
even in the same ward, when bishops change, things change drastically.
Wow.
So this ward that we had been in for 3 or 4 years, The first bishop, we only had him for a short time. And then after that, the next bishop we had was very different in the way that he handled things. So when he became bishop, he called us in, released us from our callings, and asked us not to pray in public, not to speak in church, not to bear our testimonies, not to talk during class, kind of all but disfellowshipped us without the process.
And this was prior to you being married, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Have you seen a change since you've been married? We've seen that that's often the thing that keys further punishment, if you want to call it that, or some sort of discipline is started once that happens. So
I believe that God has kind of blessed us in how our life has played out. We were living in this wonderful home in this ward, and we were renting at the time, and we had been told that, hey, we're trying to sell our house, so you're going to leave sometime between January and June. And it just so happened that we left a month before we got married. And so we're no longer in the ward. And I think that was a little grace to kind of avoid that situation. And so since then, our bishop hasn't reached out to us. He never really reached out to us in the first place. No. Like, we never really saw him anyways. He would call me in every once in a while and say, like, hey, Austin, we want you to have your temple recommend. And I'm like, Bishop, we've talked about this. I'm in a relationship and I've prayed, and this is where I know I'm supposed to be. And right now the church doesn't really have a space for people who are in a gay relationship to have a temple recommend. And so that's not going to change until something shifts at the church.
Did they give you any kind of a warning or an edict if you proceed with getting married? This is what will happen, or was it known all along, or what?
The last conversation that I had with the bishop in the ward that we were in was kind of a precursor to that, without saying anything explicitly. I don't think he liked having that conversation a lot. I don't think he liked talking about it. We were really embraced by the rest of our ward. We had really strong friends and families in the ward that we were very close to and who loved us and embraced us. But the bishop, bless his heart, he was doing the best he could with what he knew how. But he was just a farm boy from Idaho, and I think his background kind of played into how he handled us. But the last conversation we had, he said, listen, if you don't shift your path to trying to get your temple recommend back, then we might have to explore church discipline. That was the last conversation. Then we moved. And so I think we're going to figure out the next ward we go into, what it looks like.
Did you feel he was making that decision on his own, or do you feel that he was, was anything read out of a church handbook, or did he ever say, this is the church's policy on this, or how did you feel the decisions were being made?
I don't know. That's a good question. It definitely felt, just because of the personal revelation that we've had and knowing that this relationship has been guided every step of the way by God. It didn't feel like he was asking for revelation. This is totally my personal feeling. Mm-hmm. It kind of just felt like he was just doing what he thought he was supposed to do.
Rebecca, you're muted right now.
Sorry. I know my mic was kind of to the side and then it was here. I hope I can be heard on this thing. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to say that we've seen this before in just the idea that they're kind of left without maybe guidance and oversight from the top, which is why you see these differences in stories that we're covering. And of course, that leaves couples going, I don't know what's going to happen. If you had a clear idea, then you could make decisions and, like you say, personal revelation on that. But you don't know, like you said, right now, when you start going to your new, you don't know what's going to happen in your new ward. You don't know who your bishop will be, how he'll act. So that's kind of just so nebulous, you know?
Yeah, it is. It is a little uneasy, just knowing, I mean, with the high profile cases of other gay couples who are married and in the church, and watching kind of what's happening there. It's just, I don't know, there's always been this whiplash, this kind of back and forth, not only from church headquarters, but depending on the wards and the stakes that you're in. The bishop or the stake president, right when I came home from my mission after I came out, the stake president called me in my home ward and read me Doctrine and Covenants, I think 121 or 122, where it talks about how to achieve eternal salvation, and it talks about the true order of marriage and polygamy, and he read that and said, you know, if you get married in the temple to a woman, then you can achieve celestial glory, but if you stay single and celibate, you can still be in the celestial kingdom, but you'll just be a servant angel to those who are more righteous. And I was like,
2 options.
That's a great scripture to read me. Thank you so much.
And neither of those options are an option. I'm sorry. That is not an option when it's your life and you love someone. So how are your families? I'm guessing they're very excited for you guys. And are they all still in the church? And they're just like, these are our kids and this is what happened. Tell us about your families a little bit.
My family's great. I didn't really know what to expect when I came out. I was really depressed and sleeping in the attic with my parents. So it came just to a point where I needed to I needed to come out. So I left my journal under my mom's pillow, and she didn't realize it was there until 6 a.m. when she rolled over. And so I was up here thinking oh no, they hate me.
She's not going to talk to you, right? Because she's read it. She said, oh my goodness.
And I don't know. I somehow did end up getting sleep that night, but she came up and gave me a hug, and my dad came up and gave me a hug, and they were just love you. And it's they've been on a really big journey of they'll defend me in church. And
that's what I was trying to find out, because it's so different. I believe when Landon and I were younger in the 80s, parents at that point just kicked their kids out or did not support. And I think this is what the church may not see now. The parents are there. The parents are choosing the kids, because how can you not, you know? Yeah. So I love that. That's beautiful. And they will talk to their, they'll talk to their ward members and they're proud of you. I mean, I've seen that. I have a friend who's as faithful Mormon as can be, and her son just got married. She was very slow to tell all of us in the friend group a little bit, but then as soon as she got more comfortable, she could not be prouder now, and she's displaying pictures, and which I know that was a step for her, you know what I mean? But when you love your kids and your kids are happy, that's the thing. Who doesn't want to see their child happy, right? And you guys look incredibly happy, so I'm sure that your parents. What about your family, Austin?
My family has had more of a struggle. Growing up, both of my parents were just very anti-gay, very homophobic. My dad, his older brother, is gay, and my mom has a younger brother and an uncle who's gay. And those family members were never allowed over at the house while we were growing up. They didn't get talked about. Mm-hmm. My grandpa completely kicked out my uncle when he came out of the house and of the family. He was dead to them. And I think my dad, seeing how that affected his family and how much pain and anguish it caused for everyone, he was able to shift after I came out. He went on this same journey of super anti, super homophobic, said horrendous things, to kind of discovering I love you for who you are, but you should still be straight, to I love you and I'm uncomfortable with this, but I want you to be happy, to fully embracing me, supporting me, loving Dallin as his own son, and just holding a beautiful space of love for us. And my dad and I are best friends. Yeah. My mom has struggled. So my dad left the church for a myriad of reasons, but one of them being how the church treats his son.
Yep.
And so he stepped away from the church, but my mom has just kind of doubled down and dug her heels in. And she really struggles. Her and I, our relationship isn't what I want it to be. We're not close. She doesn't respect or trust me or Dallin or our relationship. She almost didn't come to our wedding, but she did, and she just kind of grudged around, didn't want to participate in anything. And it was really hard.
So
it was
hard.
really tragic. And she does all of this because of her belief, her blind faith in this idea from 2 decades ago.
Yep.
And it's just really sad to watch her get sucked into that, because I can see the pain and the cognitive dissonance happening, because I know she loves me. She just doesn't know how to show or embrace that because of the things that she believes. And that's really hard to see.
No, and that's the point, that she does love you. And I think parents in that scenario, they're like, I love them so much that I believe I won't be with them again. You know what I mean? It's coming from this place of just fear and how much they love you. And it's almost like a tough love, kind of like, if I can only get them to, it really is. It's that fear of the next life, So I look at that way too, because of course, I've stepped away and I have kids that are in, and it's a similar thing where, you're not going to go to their wedding. You're not going to do that, and there's a distance. I totally understand that, but you have to tell yourself it's from a place of, I love you so much that I'm kind of devastated from my paradigm that we won't be together. Of course, my paradigm, and yours probably too, is we're all going to be fine. We'll all be together. It's gonna, and everyone arrives at that. But this is just a beautiful story, though. You guys are just awesome. I think it's just wonderful. So you have not yet interacted in your new ward at all. You're just kind of figuring out what's going to happen and trying to see. And I think that kind of taking a step and trying to figure it out. So
we're gearing up to buy a house, and I don't know. I trust that we're going to be exactly where we're supposed to be, because I've seen that every step of the way so far. The amount of hearts that Dallin and I have been able to influence and to be a part of God's plan and a tool in God's hand to help hearts soften and change has been a huge blessing to be a part of. To watch people in our ward who literally were so homophobic that if a food server handed them food and they perceived that they were gay, he would throw it away and not want anything to do with it, to embrace us and invite us into his home, and hearts changing like that we've been part of.
No, you guys are pioneers. You're absolutely No, you are. And that's what it takes. You don't understand someone until you're in close proximity. And then you're like, I love this person. And then you start looking around and going, who's hurting this person? I don't want anyone to hurt this person. I want to make a difference. You know what I mean? It's slowly changing like that. That's why I say you guys are pioneers, just by being who you are, and being so dang lovable, right? I can tell. It exudes through the camera. You guys are just so cute.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions, Landon?
I just appreciate you guys coming on. It takes a lot of courage to do that. But like you said, it's the personal relationships that's going to make these policies change. And so congratulations on what you're doing and hanging in there tough and being an example. It's obvious you guys are great individuals who are going to bring a lot to the church if they'll only accept you to do that. So.
I genuinely believe it will happen. I also genuinely believe that it will come from interactions like this. I believe that it will come the same way that other revelations have come through the church, through someone getting ready to ask the question, what really is the purpose of the LGBTQ brothers and sisters and children in the wards? Where do we actually fit? And as soon as someone is ready to ask that question and shift policy is when we'll see it. And I have faith and truly believe that God is preparing that way, and that it'll happen when it's time.
Yep. No, we do too. We absolutely do. And I would predict sooner than people think. I mean, I think a lot of people are saying, 20 years from now. I don't think so. I think much sooner than we think, just because of people like you. And I would say to if anybody from their new ward is watching, these guys are awesome and they're going to be incredible contributors and you're going to love them. From our interaction that we've just had on the phone and here, you guys are amazing and you're going to be an asset to any ward and you're going to be able to teach them a lot just by your relationship. And so it's beautiful.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. So excellent.
I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate the time that you're taking out of your days to help spread the message of love and unity. And the church needs more people like you. We appreciate it.
We are trying hard. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Austin and Dallin. We will let you get on with your day. All right. Have a great rest of your day, guys. Thank you.
Have a good day. Enjoy conference.
Bye-bye. Thanks. Bye. Oh, I hope you guys really enjoyed that. We loved getting to know them. Oh my gosh, they were just so cute and so fun in our interactions together. Didn't you love that, Landon?
Oh yeah, Austin was very impressive to me with his desire to make change and his optimism. And both of them, both Austin and Dallin, had a great aura about them that they just wanted to see change and live their life and participate and help. I thought they were great.
No, I totally agree. And I really wish them luck. As they mentioned, they had, moved and they were trying to find a church community. I really hope they can connect and that they can be able to worship and to serve, in every way possible. Because you can see they're so enthusiastic and they have so many talents and they just want to be in a church community. They want to find a church home and they want to be able to participate. So we wish them all the luck in that. We really hope that happens for them. So, all right, let's meet our next wonderful person. And this is going to be Tyler. He was really interesting to talk to too. I mean, all of these people were, and they each kind of just have a portion of the overall story that I think as you start seeing them back to back to back, you're going to start to get a sense of what this podcast is trying to accomplish. So let's move now and let's talk to our friend Tyler. How are you, Tyler?
Good.
Great. We are so glad that you are able to join us on this podcast. And we had a very nice conversation with Tyler last week, and we thought that his story would be really important to share with everybody else on the podcast. So would you like to just tell us as much or as little as you would like about yourself?
Well, I consider myself a member of the church. However, I really am not anymore because I left several years, 15, almost 16 years ago, and went to another church. At that point, I wanted to get far away. I didn't know where I belonged. I didn't feel like I was, I should belong. And then over time, my feelings started changing, especially interacting with my daughters. And then 3 years ago, I came back. I started coming back several times before that, but 3 years, I came back full-time to the church. I had asked my name to be removed in the first place because they didn't want to go through a church trial. But I have come back and talked with my bishop and stake president over time. I'm in another ward than what I was because I had moved to a different city. But I have been very welcomed. Don't know who in the ward knows my situation, but they do accept me. They told me that they loved me, have me there. During the last years, 15 years ago, after I came out, almost 16, I should say, then I found somebody and we kept dating and we got married. He was Jewish. But I felt that I needed to be back here because of the strong convictions that I have. And since my family had been members of the church from the times of Joseph Smith, and I've read their stories and very inspiring. So, now I am now a ground.
Does your husband attend with you? That's an
yes, he
interesting,
does.
you know, being Jewish and Mormon. So that's an interesting combination there. But he does attend. That's great.
Yes. He even, you know, when they ask questions during Sunday school, he pops up with the answers. Last year when we studied the Old Testament, he was right there with his Hebrew Bible, as they say, and gave insights to different locations and things like that.
Oh, that's excellent. I bet the ward feels so lucky and honored to have him with his knowledge and also to have both of you just as a couple. That's wonderful. Do you serve in any callings or do anything in an official capacity in your ward?
Not really in an official capacity. I'm a consultant in the Family History Center.
Oh, okay. How
I was
often do you do that?
It's every week.
Oh, okay.
Yes. I have been an organist previously, member of ward choir.
That's excellent. Does your
I
husband?
don't have the official calling, but I do have a calling.
But you do have a calling. Yep. Well, if you're going once a week to the Family History
Yeah.
Center, that is a big job. That's important to help people. Does your husband, I guess he doesn't have a calling because he's not officially a member of the church, and does he help you with any of the things that you do?
No, he has his own things. What he does, he studies his Hebrew, the Hebrew Bible all the
Right.
time, every day, as well as I'm studying my scriptures. So.
That's great. Everybody studies what's important to them. So that's wonderful. And so in your ward, everybody knows you and your husband, and you attend every week. And it sounds like you're having a positive experience. It sounds like you.
Really one thing I forgot to mention, that once a month we do help out with this, help preparing grocery bags of food for the homeless.
Oh.
It was a project that was started by our stake several years ago.
That sounds amazing. And so both of you helped do that, to prepare bags of food to give to the homeless. That's amazing. You guys are just wonderful. And so do you consider that you have lots of friends in the ward and they
yes,
love you and your husband? That's so wonderful to hear.
Yes.
And so you had told us that you weren't sure that a lot of people knew your situation in your ward, but your bishop definitely knows the situation. Is that correct?
That is right. So does the elders quorum president. I'm sure their counselors do, but I'm sure other people have already figured it out since we're always together.
Yeah.
I would think so. Yeah, that would be hard to hide.
Are you allowed to take the sacrament?
No.
Okay. And is that of your own volition, or has that been told to you by a church leader that you're not allowed to?
That is correct, by a church leader, right?
Okay.
But so they did say not the sacrament, but other ways that you're participating and contributing, like preparing, helping in charitable causes, working every week in the Family History Center, and you were an organist before, and you and your husband participate not only in sacrament meeting, but in class where you both make comments and you add to the discussion.
Yes.
Oh, isn't that amazing, Landon? That just sounds exactly like it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. How long have you, since you've come back, you said 3 years ago that you've been participating, and all that time in this ward, and you've been treated that way?
In the second ward. This is the second ward. In the first ward, we were there for 2 years, and then we back in this ward for 1 year.
And did you feel you got the same treatment in both wards, or did you find different treatments in different wards?
Yes, very loving the other ward, and they very lovingly like having us back in activities that we go back periodically for.
So in the first ward that you were in, is that the ward that you got married in, or did you get married not attending any ward And then
That is correct.
Okay, so you showed up at that first ward, married, you and your husband, and they were very welcoming.
Yes.
And
I had a very positive experiences with them.
Wow.
and just for clarification, you don't have to tell us, where you live, but are you in Utah or outside of Utah?
Outside of Utah, California.
Okay, California.
Okay. That's a wonderful story. We love to hear that because we've heard other stories where people really, really want to participate and they're not necessarily included in the way you are. And it sounds like you're just a regular member of the ward.
Yes.
Oh, that's great. That's wonderful.
And like I said, I feel loved like I did in the other ward. I was just surprised. Now, the ward that when I first came out, then that was a different story.
Oh, so you were attending and then you came out and then things didn't go exactly well. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And you said you removed your records earlier. Was that a request from the church that you do that?
That
or you
was
just didn't
mine.
feel?
That
Okay.
was mine.
And you just didn't feel that was the right place for you?
Right. And I wanted to explore other options, but like I said, I went to a different church for quite a while, but I didn't feel that the people were great, but the doctor didn't feel right to me.
Yeah. When you're a lifelong Mormon, that's true. It is very hard to find another place. That's a fact. So when you were in that first ward and you were obviously dating your husband, did you let the leaders know, look, I'm dating, I think we're headed to marriage? Was there any of that where they were talking to you throughout that process?
Well, no. In fact, I came out and left home before I had met him.
Okay.
So you were out of the church when you met him, and then you got married and came back after you were married. Is that?
That is correct.
Okay.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that's interesting because it sounds like that first ward that wasn't exactly as inclusive as you're so lucky to have found these other two wards that you.
Yeah, the first ward is where of course I came out and I had a meeting with the bishop and his counselors, like a ward church court rather than the stake.
Okay.
And I felt at that time, I said, if I've got to deal with this, I don't want to be here.
Understood.
And
were you married prior to that and in that ward to I think you said
I came out while I was still married when I came out.
Okay.
So to make sure I understand. So you were married to a woman and came out in the ward. And then even though you weren't dating anyone or hadn't met your husband yet, you still had to go through a bishop's court and then just decided to step away from everything. Okay.
Yes, I was a high priest group leader at the time.
Okay. That's so interesting that, that they would have a court when really all you said is, this is how I feel now. You're not acting on it. You're not dating. You haven't remarried or even met your husband yet there was a disciplinary action. That's interesting.
Well, it was I had done some stuff that wasn't right, and so
okay, yeah. And again, you can share as little or as much. It's interesting to hear these stories where you here have been in three boards.
It took a while before my relationship with my daughters healed.
Yeah, understood.
They were both teenagers at the time this all happened.
And so your daughters, it sounds like, are in the church, and that's one of the reasons you wanted to come back. Okay.
Very active.
Oh, that's great.
Have they accepted you since you've come back and with your new?
I think they have.
Okay, good, wonderful.
Yeah, that's really good. So all the people you love,
and even my ex-wife is forgiving me for everything that happened, and we were actually on good terms.
Oh,
very good.
See, that's so positive, and you also have a wonderful community at church to be part of. That sounds like it's very satisfying.
And I also have 3 grandchildren.
Oh.
See, this is
I'm
great.
about to have my third. So.
Oh my goodness, I have none. Well, this is really excellent to hear. We love to hear this. Did you feel that your second ward, do you feel like they instantly kind of just were totally on board and accepting of you and your husband, or did they take a while to warm up, or was it just
No,
instant love?
it was very fast.
Oh, that's really good to hear too. Yeah, that's exciting. I love to think that a ward, despite maybe some messages they might be hearing otherwise in other places, are just like, no, we love these guys. We love them. And they're part of our community. And they're going to help us. And they're going to have a calling in the Family History Center. And they're going to participate. And I just think that's wonderful.
We were going through a rough patch of with some money that we had lost our place like in December. Our landlord had passed away anyway. We were in the process of having to find another place. And just before Christmas, the bishop showed up with a check for $2,000. It was given to him anonymously. He said he had no idea where it came from. It was just slipped under his office door. But somebody or more than one person came up with this money, and it was in my name. I have no idea where it came from, but it's something that I just can't fathom how that happened. But yeah.
That's amazing. That's wonderful. That shows that you guys are beloved people in the ward, that, you know, like all wards should be. When somebody has a problem or needs help, everybody just bands together and helps, and that's how it should be. And they're not
when we moved to different part of the ward, the elders quorum got together and helped us move.
Well, it sounds like the ward's doing what a ward should do, and that's
There's
very
nothing more
hear.
Mormon than the elders quorum.
Just showing up to move.
So no, that's great. That's the thing we love about the Mormon people is they're so good, and you can count on them to step up when you're down and to help when things are not at their best. And that's one of the things we've always loved, and why we always say we're still Mormonish, even though we've left the church institution. We still love the people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. And it sounds like the people love you, Tyler, and that is absolutely wonderful to hear. And we absolutely wanted to share this story with our viewers and listeners to let them know that in some areas there are wards that absolutely embrace everyone, regardless. Everyone's embraced, everyone's helped, everyone's included, everyone is given a task and is able to contribute.
You know, I want to say something else. After we had left our longtime place a year ago, where we were living in another county, we needed a place to stay for one night. And there was this family in the ward that let us stay at their house, which I was surprised at. It's a very, very loving family. Also, another thing that surprised me is when we needed some extra help with our food, the bishop, and a few times now, has actually let us go to the storehouse and get stuff.
Wow, this is just amazing, especially letting you stay in their home, because I know we've heard some counsel, I think it was from President Oaks before, that said if your children want to come and stay in your home and they're in a same-sex relationship, you know, don't really do that. So this is incredible that these ward members are so loving that they let you stay and you have all that support. That's just a really heartwarming story.
Also, when I came out, there was a few members of my family that didn't quite accept things, but the other members, brothers and sisters, did. I had one brother was a bishop at the time, very accepting. I got to stay at his house. Found out later he had a gay son himself.
Yeah. That's it. That's exactly right. And I think you see that happening all over the place, where it's no longer just an other person or something that is not in my family. It's a part of so many families, and people are so inclusive.
And I have a sister in the Salt Lake area that we always go stay with. No problem whatsoever.
See that this is
And but in
really good news.
a bunch of my siblings that said at the time that we knew you were.
Oh,
They knew. Yeah.
I had been struggling with it for years, and it finally just got too much for me.
Did you know before you got married the first time and you know, kind of followed the teachings go ahead and do this, or
Yes. I didn't know for sure. I had an inkling I was, but I didn't quite understand it. Had his feeling that didn't make sense to me. I'll put it that way. Not knowing any other gay people at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, then of course, living where I did in Southeastern Idaho, it was kind of difficult. I was a student at BYU.
Yeah, that wasn't even on your radar at all. And you just do what everyone else did. You get married and you start having kids, and it's not.
But I realized something was different when I was on my honeymoon.
Oh.
I said, I wanted somebody to come by and take me away, because I said, oh no, I don't want to be here.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And there's so many in that scenario, and they have no idea what they're feeling, what it means. And they just try to go ahead and do what they think they're supposed to do. And I have to say, sometimes leaders encourage you to do that, you know, not anymore, but I think in the past, I think that was part of it.
It took me almost nearly 20 years before I figured it out.
Yeah. Wow. But it sounds like now you're on good terms with your ex-wife, good terms with your daughter, you're in a ward. It really sounds like a wonderful life.
Yes. Now, if my health would get better, I'd be happier.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah, getting old isn't for
when you get older, things go wrong.
Yeah.
We talk about that all the time. Like, I once heard a comedian that said, when you're older, when you go to sleep, you hurt yourself in your sleep. You wake up and you're like, what happened? My arm is dislocated. I used to laugh at that joke until I got older. I'm like, that happens. You wake up and you don't feel great. That is absolutely true.
Yeah, I am retired. I am retired now, and so
yeah. Well, it sounds like you guys
even in my last job, I never told anybody, you know, what was going on with me, and then somebody finally came up to me one day and said, "Are you gay?" I said, "How did you figure it out?" Because she said, "I have a gay uncle."
There you go.
And then pretty soon, everybody knew. Nobody had any trouble with it.
No. Yeah. That's what we want to hear, and that's the way it should be. So, well, we are so grateful that you came on the podcast and shared your story. And we just have loved, this is our favorite part of doing this episode, is getting to meet everybody. And we have absolutely loved talking with you and getting to know you better, Tyler. And we thank you for being so brave to share your story and tell us all about your life.
Also another thing, my husband has interacted with my grandchildren.
Oh.
And my grandson, the older one, actually comes up in his lap and like to have stories read to him.
Oh. See, that's perfect. You guys get to be grandpas. That's the best thing.
Yeah. See, my husband is an only child.
Oh.
So that's important to him. Yeah.
Yeah, and marrying into my family. Yeah.
Yeah, now he's grandpa. Oh, that's wonderful. I absolutely love this story. That's really heartwarming. Yeah, well, thank you so much, Tyler. We really appreciate your time, and we appreciate you sharing your story. And if anyone ever sees this, who I guess they don't know your name, so in your ward, but I was going to say, good for you, Tyler's ward. That's amazing. Both of your wards. Good for you. That is how it should be.
I have it. I've had amazing bishops up to now.
Yeah.
They've so understanding.
Yeah.
I've had long discussions with them in their offices. We've cried together and everything.
Great.
Yeah. That's wonderful. All right. Well, thank you so much, Tyler. We really appreciate you sharing your story. And again, it was just wonderful to meet you. And please say hello to your husband from us and thank him
And
for.
I will do so.
Yeah, please do so. Thank you so much, Tyler. We'll say goodbye for now. Thank
All right,
you.
thanks,
Okay,
Tyler.
thank you. Bye-bye.
Oh, that was so fun to talk to Tyler. He was just amazing. And we really enjoyed all of our conversations off camera and on camera with them. And his situation was kind of unique. You were bringing up, Landon, in that it was mixed faith.
Yeah, his husband was Jewish, and so that was quite interesting to see a Mormon person and a Jewish person, and although his husband didn't speak to us or we didn't talk to him, it's interesting to see how you have the same issues that people who are in a heterosexual marriage have when you have mixed faith situation. So it's very interesting from that standpoint.
Yeah, it was. And he did mention to us as we were wrapping up, because this is one of our secrets of podcasting. We'll do the podcast and then we'll spend like an hour talking to the guests just for fun afterwards. I know we should start a Patreon. But he did mention that he really wishes he could go to the temple and hopes that someday that can be true. And I just, as we see these couples, just again, the common thread is the talent, the just the desire to serve. They have so much to give, and they've given before, right? They've been active, they've been doing things, and then a life change. And now they're married, and now a lot of them are shut off in so many ways as far as being able to contribute. But that desire, they just talked about it over and over. They want that community again. They want that desire. And you're going to see this in all of these stories. It's the common thread, don't you think, Landon?
Yeah, it's so opposite of what we're used to as Mormons, in that, you got married and then you were welcomed into the ward and everyone wanted you to come and participate and help. And in so many of these cases, it's the exact opposite. Once you get married, it's, well, now you can't participate anymore. And that's it's hard to watch, and it's hard to talk to these couples and find out, well, we wanted to participate and it's what we were doing, and all of a sudden it all stopped. So
it all stops and they miss it. You can tell that they miss it, and they really desire it. So, all right, that was awesome. Let's move on to our next couple. This is Brittany and Jackie. They were so fun to talk to. Oh my goodness. I loved them, and they are raising their son, and they have a similar yet different experience. That's the thing. There are commonalities, and then there are big differences. So let's talk to Brittany and Jackie now. And now we are so excited to invite onto the podcast our new friends, Brittany and Jackie. How are you guys today?
We're doing well.
Oh, good, good. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm telling you, this project that we started, we just never realized that we'd meet so many just fun and interesting people. Don't you think, Landon?
Absolutely. Yep. And this sounds like a fun couple. They are a married couple. But we wanted to just kind of have you tell your story a little bit. Where'd you meet, and a little bit about your background in the church, and did you go on a mission? What was your life like in the church?
Start at the beginning.
Changed it? Yep.
Start at the beginning. I'll start first. So my name is Brittany, and I was born and raised in the church. We don't have enough time to go into my full history, so I'll just keep it more personal to me. But I went on a mission. I went to BYU and graduated from BYU. I was previously married to a man in the Salt Lake Temple. We had one son together. We later divorced. And through fortuitous circumstances, Jackie was able to adopt our son. So now we are raising him together. That happened about a year ago.
2 years ago.
No, that was last year.
Yeah.
That was last year. But then
that's awesome.
But then I was born and raised mostly in Salt Lake City. When I was 16, we moved, but the heart of downtown Salt Lake was just a couple minutes from my home. So very much raised in the church culture.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
that's awesome.
I grew up in LA, and so I'm actually I'm a convert, was a convert. I don't know the proper terminology here, but we met the church with the missionaries in LA, and I got baptized with my mom. My family got baptized a little bit in different sections, and then I ended up going to BYU Idaho. Then I went to I graduated from BYU Hawaii, and I ended up serving a mission out in Peru. And then my sisters also family, we served missions. My other sister served missions, and yeah, we pretty much were very immersed in the church, and I think we have many great blessings. I think we came together. We actually found each other through an app, and it was actually our religion and our missions that actually our
Connected
testimony
us,
that we were interested in each other was I was looking for my return missionary. I felt like I was praying, what I needed to do next. I think my career was going, and I was like, okay, I feel like I have to become an adult here and like find my partner. And so I had this really strong impression that I really needed to find my missionary, and that I hadn't my return missionary, and that it was going to be fine. I was going to find somebody of the same sex, and I was going to do this, and I was going to be happy. And so I went through what we could, through the apps, and started dating and looking.
Started swiping. Yeah.
Started swiping, living down here in southern Utah, and I would go up to Utah County to go date. Actually, it was pretty regular. It was from a Friday. I would go up, start dating. I was very dedicated to
You were on a mission.
Yes. And yeah, so we ended up connecting that way. It was actually pretty funny because I was so focused on the religion part, because it was such a big part of me that I felt like I couldn't do it. I couldn't let go of that part. And so I was like, I am going to find somebody that will respect my beliefs and help me just grow in the way we're going to figure it out, like in a very unique way where we both will figure it out together. And so shortly after that, I believe that impression came to me. It's just crazy because it was like June. That impression came to me of 2020, and that same time frame, I got an impression, you got to go buy a house. And I was like, okay. And it was like very clear, going to get these roommates. Bam. I was like doing everything I felt like I needed to. And then a couple months, like
September of 2020,
we meet, and then didn't realize, I was going to get a different type of roommate. Like, we're going to have it's going to be a parent
roommate. Yeah.
So did you guys move in together before you got married, and you were going to the ward and going to church together at that point, or?
Yes. So 2020 was, there was still the not in-house meetings yet. It was a lot of the Zoom. And so was the schooling down here. Some of the schooling was present, or where she was, it was online. And so we, at the beginning, we weren't going to church in person. It was all through Zoom. Okay. And then 2021, I believe, is when it opened, and then we started going attending.
So in about March of 2021 is when we started attending in person locally down here. And then it was in July that we got married. And so we had been in our ward for over a year, pre-marriage, post-marriage, before our records were removed.
Okay. So while you were dating, did you have callings, and were you fully immersed in the ward? Did it sort of shift once you moved toward marriage, or what's that trajectory? In our talking to different people, there's every different way that it can go. We pretty much heard everything.
I think it's funny because I think we were very, I was very honest. I think we were both very honest.
Very honest and open about our relationship.
We were also honest prior to this. I think when I got the impression, I was very forward with my bishop on how I was gay and that I was going to pursue this. And so they were like, okay, there's going to be restrictions. And so I was like, okay, I'm totally fine. Like, and so when we started, we were roommates, but we were dating, and we were forward with that in regards to telling our Relief Society president, because they gave us
they reached out for us to be ministering sisters.
We were, and as companions.
Oh, okay. That's great.
But we turned around and said, we would be happy to, but you need to be aware of our situation. And so the Relief Society president, she's like, well, I have no problem with it. Took it to the bishopric, and the bishop was like, we don't feel comfortable with that. So we were not allowed to be ministering sisters. However, the Relief Society president at the time gave us special assignments. She called us like angel sisters, which we just loved. And it was allowing us to administer outside of the box. So for example, there was a sister in the ward at the time who was bringing her family to the ward because they mostly spoke Spanish, and she wanted her children to be more around English speaking. And because we had both served missions in Spanish speaking countries, she felt we would be a little extra help to make her feel comfortable in Relief Society and understand what was going on. And then another sister, she was not a member, but her husband at the time was, and he was becoming reactivated to start attending church again. So she wasn't on the church record, so could not get a formal ministering assignment. So we were asked to kind of, make sure she was comfortable and she had friends to sit by during Relief Society. And we were very honored and touched that we were given that assignment, and we tried hard with it. We were also given the assignment to be on the activities committee, and we knew we couldn't be in certain callings. We knew we couldn't hold callings, but they were very open to us holding assignments, and we were absolutely welcoming to anything. And so we got to plan the parties. So that's what our life looked like for about a year and 3-4 months. That's what we did.
And I love that. I love the idea that there are people in the ward, even though there are certain thoughts of what limitations. They're like, no, we're going to have these wonderful people serve. We're going to have them. We're going to find, I just love that people are trying so hard to work around these policies or whatever that are in place and, let you serve. And that I think is a theme. Wouldn't you say, Landon, with everyone we've talked to, everyone wants to serve. They have so much to give, and they usually do find people that allow them in most cases to try to help. Of course, we have talked to some that they're completely cut off from service, but your story is inspiring. I love that. Shout out to everybody in that ward. That's amazing.
Yeah. And so we made friends. I mean, I think it was, we both didn't know how it was going to be.
Yeah.
We were just figuring it out. I mean, we're still figuring it out, but it was a good time. I think that for those first, how many months did you say it was?
It was a year and 3 or 4 months.
I think we grew, as a couple. We grew with the ward. We found some people that were just, we were connecting with, we had spiritual experiences with, and then, like you mentioned a little bit, then our bishop changed, and that's when it all of a sudden we were kind of the hot topic that we had to be dealt with or discuss what our motives were.
Care of. There was specific verbiage used when we were first called in.
And so that was also something very hard for us, just because at the time we were going through just a legal battle with just trying to keep our son safe. And so at the time it was very hectic, and naturally I think our instinct would have been go to the church leaders to help us kind of get that comfort, but that was not at all what we got. We felt like they were just trying to take care of it. Take care of the issue.
Yes, you're not people, it's an issue. I know. Yeah. I'm so sorry.
But let me just say, like, the experience of it alone was something that was actually very spiritual towards the whole thing, because I felt like for the longest, my biggest fear was I would never get revelation again. Mm-hmm. The Holy Ghost wouldn't be with us if we didn't keep a membership. Me and Brittany wouldn't have that connection where we would know how to guide our family. There's these things that we were told, but throughout it, I felt like we were very honest. We were very honest with our testimonies. We were very honest with each leader, and we could feel, and they could not deny that the Spirit was present. as they spoke to us. And a lot of the times they were like, this is not at all what we expected it to be. Like, this is not at all what we had in that you guys had, totally something different agenda and with that process for myself, I felt like the whole time I kept feeling like they just don't understand, and you're going to be okay. And you're going to be okay. And like I said, the reason I brought up the issue with some of the legalities with her child is because we didn't know how we were going to figure out some of those issues as well. But it was like daily we were getting revelation of how to take care of our own son and guidance in that parenting.
More than taking care of him, protect him, because he was in a very dangerous situation. And like I said, we had the courts involved and we had DCFS involved. Oh. And ironically, and this was a topic of conversation throughout the whole process of our records removal. We had the option of maintaining our membership, but that would require us to sever our marriage. However, the courts required us to stay married in order for Jackie to adopt Oliver. Yes. So we literally had to choose between church membership and putting a little boy into a safe home. And it was
family.
Yeah. We literally
family
court the day after our records removal.
Oh my goodness. No, well, what other choice could you make? I mean, right. And that's the thing. You're put in that scenario just by the construct that's there, that hopefully someday will change. But of course you had to do that. What else did you do? And did your leaders understand that scenario? I mean, it sounds like you did discuss it. I mean, heavens.
They understood. And I think it's important for Jackie and I to make it clear that we put no anger or animosity towards our leaders. Yep. They were doing what they were told they had to do.
Right.
We recognize that. We acknowledge that. Mm-hmm. We love them. We see them regularly. The stake president, when he sees us, I'm so glad to see you. Oh. We made it clear that we had full intention on attending regularly, that we wanted our son to be raised in the church. And they were very happy with it. The same with the bishop. And so Jackie had said something. It was a couple of months later. We actually went to the open house of the St. George Temple when it was remodeled. We went and we actually ran into our bishop there, and it was really fun to kind of bump into him. And we came home that night, and Jackie said, I got this very strong impression that we're all learning, and our bishop is learning, and our stake president is learning, and the area authorities are learning. This is such an uncharted territory that everybody's learning. Do we agree with the decision that was made? No. Do we wish it would have been different? Yes. But we're not mad at them for what they did.
Now, did you end up removing your records, or were you church disciplined and excommunicated?
Church disciplined and excommunicated, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think across the board, talking to these couples, I think, Landon, you'd agree that everybody talks about revelation, inspiration, knowing that even though right now it seems that they're at odds with what the church is asking them to do, they personally feel like it's the right thing, and they've received a confirmation that they're supposed to do what they do and be where they are, and almost be a teaching tool, right there on the ground, like a pioneer. I think I referred, because like you said, your bishop, your stake president, how do they have experience with anything? They do now. They understand now, and they felt the spirit that you guys had. And we're hearing this from others too. They're just like, we are completely comfortable with what we did because we know we've had a personal witness that that's what we're supposed to do. You can't argue with that. You can't argue. And as we talk to everybody, we feel it too. We're like, absolutely. We see who you are. We feel who you are, and we understand what you're doing. So you're just ahead of your times. That's what.
Well, at the same time, like for me, the way that I explain it is I can't expect somebody to understand something that has taken me 30 plus years to figure out, and that's unfair for me to start pushing somebody to understand 100%. Just how I don't want to be pushed to do something else, right? Like that there is still freedom. I still feel like I'm very much free to do what I want to do. And church still is a place where I feel like I'm still learning. Like I'm learning how others really have a good relationship with God, how they're learning, just listening to their testimonies, listening to these things. And then certain teachers 100% I feel like are inspired. There's certain things that they say that I do need. And so I mean, this journey has come and just kind of tweaked that view of growth for me. And I'm like, it's one step at a time, and it just doesn't happen all at once. And so I can't expect it, especially people have grown up looking at the world at a certain way for so long, and then they've been told, hold on tight to the iron rod.
Yeah, no, they absolutely have. And you have that perspective, and you're just like, simply by attending church and being there and being a couple and a family, you're helping people learn right there just by being you. So do you then attend every Sunday? You're there, you're going, you're taking your son, and you're part of the board. That's amazing. That's wonderful. And so are they still letting you serve in different ways and participate? Are you still doing the ministry, the ministering you were talking about, or the angel ministry? Are you still?
No, shortly after we got a new bishopric, we also got a new Relief Society presidency.
Okay, so it was different.
And there really hasn't been any reach out from them. Again, we're not angry or upset. In some ways we're sad because we would like to contribute in whatever way we can. But, their choice, whether it's intentional or accidental, when your name's not on a list, it's hard to not remember, right?
Yeah. But they see you every Sunday, right? And they see your son in primary and everything. So you're there. Okay.
We're there, and they know our names. So they're aware who we are.
And I think that's what it led us to create the podcast, the Positive Gospel Podcast, where we read.
Yes. Tell us about the podcast.
Is because we felt like we wanted to speak out. We can't, share our thoughts during classes. So we created the podcast so that we could share how we're still receiving revelation as we read the scriptures, and how do they apply to our life. Because I felt like for the longest, it was like the gospel can't apply to you as a queer person. And then, so now I'm like, well, we are in our way, and with another couple, we share insights, and I think it helps us.
Well, that's really beautiful. So because you can't speak in class because you've been excommunicated, you formed a podcast where you can discuss what you're feeling as you go to class and the things you're learning. Wow. Kudos, guys. That's really cool.
So, and to help everybody understand, it's called the Positive Gospel Podcast. Is that right? And it follows Come Follow Me. So with kind of a perspective from your personal perspective. And this is great. We will link this in the show notes for everybody. I will say, check this out. This seems like it's absolutely amazing. And you're right. When your voice is silenced in one place, even if, it's not intentional, or it is, you find another way to speak. And it's important, I think.
So it's interesting that, like, this is probably, we have our, what is that called? The patriarchal blessing. There we go. We have a patriarchal blessing. We got it. Got it when I was 16, and it was funny that one of the sentences there was like, "Oh, bless you to be able to share your testimony in every source of media." This is before social media was a thing.
Oh,
and
20 years ago,
I always wondered what it was, and now it hits so hard. It's just super interesting because I tell people, the church really taught us, developed these skills in us to be able to speak up, be bold in our beliefs, to testify of Christ, to help others come unto Christ. But we didn't think we were going to be taking a different angle.
But it's still all relevant. Everything that you were trained for and that you experienced and that you were told in your blessing, you're doing it. So I think that's what people need to understand. It's still all very relevant. So
I
This is
think
great.
it's also important to note that had our records not been removed, I don't think we would be doing the podcast, because we would be afraid
Yes.
that if we're that open,
Mhm.
that we would be targeted, the pressure would be put on someone. And so I think the records removal actually kind of freed us to be able to really focus on what matters to us, what's important to us, and how can we share our testimony of the Savior and the atonement in ways that make sense to us, and that other people in our situation can kind of relate to. And so it was an interesting realization when it all started. And it started because that first year was really, really hard. We felt silenced, we felt unimportant. And it was during the Gather conference this last fall that I received the strong impression where it was stop being upset and stop being angry. You still can share your testimony. And that's when I was like, oh, wow, like this is what we have to do. And so that's kind of how it all started.
And who would you say the audience, who are you trying to reach through your podcast?
I think the main target audience would be queer Christians.
Mm-hmm.
Even though right now we're studying the Book of Mormon, many other Christian denominations may not necessarily connect with the Book of Mormon. There are so many beautiful stories in so many different religious texts. We're just choosing to focus on, the LDS scripture. And then as we go into, the Old Testament, New Testament.
Next year you'll move through.
Yeah.
So, that's amazing.
Our target audience specifically is for Christian queer individuals. I think our secondary audience would be allies to help them understand our perspective and kind of the realities that we're dealing with.
Yeah, I love that. I think this is a really valuable tool. I think that everybody watch this. I think that people will not only learn something from it themselves, but like you said, probably can think of somebody else that could really use it, So how often do you put it out?
We try and do it weekly to follow the lesson structure. Through the Easter holiday, things got busy, so skipped a week or two, but we'll get something out. But our goal is every week to follow the lesson.
Oh, that's great. No, I'm thrilled to be able to link this in the show notes and tell everybody, check this out. This is amazing. So I love it. This is great. Well, do you have any other questions, Landon? I know we really could talk for like an hour.
No, just appreciate you coming on. You've got conference weekend here to get your get caught up on your podcast then. So that's helpful, but great. We really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us. Great courage that you have to keep your voice and keep saying what you feel. That's what this is all about.
Yeah, it's excellent. Any final thoughts? And then we'll wrap up. You guys are just amazing.
I think that's it. Inviting us. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You guys are great. So, all right. Well, thank you. Thank you. We were really excited to get to meet you and to hear your story. And again, we will talk about your podcast and we'll put it in the show notes so everybody can check it out. So, all right. Thanks, Brittany. Thanks, Jackie. We will see you guys later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Oh, that was excellent. I loved interacting and talking to Brittany and Jackie. They were just so positive. I'm sure you guys could tell that. I'm sure that came through. They were just wonderful. And I loved how they were able to find a way to still let their voice be heard, even though they are being curtailed in their ward. I mean, what did you think of that? I thought that was just inspirational.
They clearly had a testimony, and, part of the gospel for those of us that were raised in that is that, you were to declare it and express it, and they wanted to, and they found a way to continue to express their voice, which was so impressive to me with their podcast, and that they weren't going to be silenced, that they were going to say what they believed, which is what everybody's right should be.
Yep, it's true. And we always ask everybody before they came on, would you like to be anonymous? What's your situation? We want to make sure everybody's safe. And they were just like, oh no, put us on, We've been excommunicated. We're completely comfortable. We're completely fine. They can do nothing to us. But we still love the church and we still want to participate and we want to try to affect change. And so they had just a really great attitude. I felt they were working with what they had. They were hoping for change, but not just hoping. They were actively trying to make some change within their situations. So Yeah.
Yeah,
They were
and
very
not
inspirational.
in an aggressive way, not in a
No.
in your face way. They were doing it the way that they figured they could make the change. So,
Yep. And they had their priorities completely straight. They chose family, they chose love, and they were living their life, and they seemed like they were very happy. So we really loved meeting them. So, all right, let's move on to our fourth story of the three stories. And this is Stephen that we are going to introduce you guys to. And of all the stories that we heard and the ones that we podcasted about, this one I think is the one that we found ourselves just getting very, I think, emotional about as Stephen shares his journey. So we will just roll this section and then we'll talk about it afterwards. Let's meet Stephen. We'd like to welcome onto the podcast today our friend Stephen, who also goes by ex-Elders Quorum President. Stephen, welcome today, Stephen. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Very good.
Fine too. Yeah, we're so excited to talk to you today, and we're really grateful that we reached out kind of anonymously to Stephen and asked if he would like to come on and participate in this program, and he was willing. And we had a conversation ahead of time, and we're really excited to be able to share his story with all of you because I think it's going to be really interesting and enlightening. Don't you, Landon?
absolutely. And this is obviously a sensitive subject, and it's sensitive for Stephen. So we appreciate him coming on. That's one of the reasons we've got an avatar here is, he's going to tell a story. It's his story, but we wanted to, kind of protect his identity somewhat so that he could have the privacy, but still hear his story. So we appreciate your willingness to come on, Stephen. And obviously,
Yes,
Stephen is not his real name.
Is anyone's name real on our show? I'm not sure. We don't know. So, all right. So I guess our first question would be, as we get started, just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll just kind of dive into the topic of what church attendance is like for you and your husband.
Yeah, so I grew up in the church. My parents were both very active. My parents' marriage was disharmonious, very disharmonious. But they stayed together for church purposes. And my home had lots of love between my parents and their children, but between the two of them, it was just a lot of emotional damage that happened between the two of them, and then to all of the children in the home as well. So for me to step out of what they wanted growing up was not even a question. Like, I had a couple siblings that pushed the boundaries, and it was kind of World War III in our home over those issues. And so even if I had wanted to share with them at that point, there wasn't really an environment that I felt safe to do that in. And so I went just straight down the line mission. Well, first Eagle Scout mission, come home, next step, get married in the temple. I was married for 20 years to a lovely woman who I still love and respect this day the same way that I always did as a gay man. It wasn't exactly what she needed or what she had hoped for coming into the marriage, obviously. But we made the best of it. And my story is a little different than others in the fact, and similar also in the fact, that I had never shared with anyone or written down or talked with a bishop or a friend or my wife of 20 years, my ex-wife of 20 years, about how I felt, or my parents or siblings or anyone. And so I kept all of that inside. And there was a life event that occurred in my life that added a lot of emotional trauma onto me, and it was impossible for me to keep keep all of that inside with this additional trauma that I was experiencing. But my time in the church, I loved being a part of the ward. The teachings of the church, as far as families and just the love that should be there and all of that was really important to me. And I did have a home there, and I was completely active my whole life. I could probably count on one hand, that maybe two hands, the amount of times that I missed church in my entire life prior to the experience. And so I served in 3 elders quorum presidencies. I was a ward clerk, ward mission leader, and some of my favorite, those callings were a lot of work. My favorite callings were in the nursery and in primary as the ward, or as the primary chorister, which I served under 3 different primary presidents as a chorister during the course of my marriage, and did 4 different primary programs, which was just wonderful. So anyway, that's kind of my background growing up, and what kind of led to the position that I was in at the time, and kind of how I felt, and still really feel about the church, if I was allowed to participate still.
Yeah, and that's the key. So can you tell us then about the change? You had a big change and your life went in another direction.
Yeah, so when that big life event happened for me, that made it so I was basically physically incapable of keeping it inside anymore. After I got through the big part of that, I went and talked to the bishop that I was serving with at the time, and he was the first person. We had obviously we'd served through COVID together, taking care of a ward as a bishop and elders quorum president, and I had a especially close bond with him. And he's the first person in my life that I ever told I was gay. And then it just kind of sat for a month. In our meeting, we obviously decided that at some point I needed to tell my ex-wife. And it was so very uncomfortable for me at that point, just knowing kind of what the road ahead was likely be for me. So it took me a little over a month from talking to him to talk to my ex. And I tried to come out to her in a position. Her dad was on the phone, and then we were sitting in a parking lot close to our church at the time. We had a appointment with the bishop so she could have the support that she needed with that kind of news. And then after that, and it wasn't a super long time. I'm the type of person that when I commit to something, it's 110%. And when I'm ready to let go, it's pretty quick. And so from the time that I told her until we were divorced was about 6 or 7 weeks.
Oh my goodness,
And
that's fast.
yeah, it was fast. And anyway, so
That must have been pretty difficult. Was she devastated? Was she supportive? How did that?
so she was very supportive, after the initial shock.
Mhm.
And her hope was that we could make it work, but uh, I was hurting so much. And there were some things in the marriage that were not 100% positive or healthy that I just need to get away from when I was going through all of the pain that I was processing through. I remember I knew it was getting really severe. I've never been one to have any type of self-harm type feelings, but I remember I was really close to starting to having a eating disorder. And if you know anything about that, that is when you've just totally lost control of your life. And that's basically the only thing that you feel like you have control over anymore. And so when I started feeling that inside, I knew that I needed to get to a more healthy position. And my ex and I are good friends today. We co-parent and support each other within the what we're each comfortable with at this time. I'm more comfortable than she is, and so she kind of sets the boundaries of where those lines are drawn as far as, but we'll still go to a movie together as a family or try and do what she's comfortable with together.
Is
Because we,
she in the church and your children in the church? Or only
uh,
answer if you're comfortable. You don't have to.
she's still in the church.
Oh, okay.
My daughter attends seminary, but we are not from where we live now. And when we moved here, my daughter had a really hard time reconnecting with kids her age in the church. And so she didn't attend a lot, but if you asked her, she would still say that she's active. But in between the time that I was divorced and still attending, I always encouraged her to come with me. And she did a few times to the ward that I attended after I was divorced.
So, at what point did you meet the man that you married, and how did you were still in the same ward when you met him, or had you moved by that time?
So, because of my close relationship with the leadership of that prayer ward, I made the decision that I wasn't going to process through any of the disciplinary things in that ward because I didn't want them to have to go through that with me. And so we sold our home, and I actually was in the home my ex moved out, and then I got it ready to sell, and I was still attending that ward during that time. And so after the home sold, and I moved into a new ward, is when I started to go meet with the bishop of that new ward to kind of discuss what was happening in my life at that point. And then as far as how my husband and I met, so a few days, 3 days after my divorce was final, I went on to an online dating community, and I know many people that may listen to this may not believe it, but we truly believe that God brought two people that were really hurting together in that moment. So we met pretty much 15-20 minutes after I signed up on that online dating app. And anyway, about a half hour, I was the first one. I went through and liked 5 or 6 guys on the app, and he was one of them. And then he messaged me about a half hour later, and then we talked for 3 hours the next 4 nights. And then we realized that there was something significant there and a real connection. And so it was a Tuesday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we talked for 3 hours and realized, like I said, there was a connection. We were on our first date. And by Friday, he asked me to be exclusive with him.
Wow.
And then Saturday, we were on our first date, and we've been together ever since. And so,
And is he LDS?
I was just going to ask that.
he is LDS, and he is actually still a member, and we'll get into that whole process.
Right. So at this time when you met, you were both actively attending church, and you knew that about each other, that you were both members, and you began dating.
Yeah, and so a little bit about my husband just in general. He was a convert, and he served a mission, served in various callings. He was an assistant to the president in his mission, and so pretty solid foundation in the church for both of us as far as what it meant to us at the time, and kind of our hopes for our ability to stay in the church and be contributing, even contributing non-members would have been okay.
Mm-hmm.
But that wasn't how it worked out.
So tell us, a little bit about what happened. You're dating, you're attending a ward, or you attending together, and what happened from there?
So where I moved to, I started attending a ward. It was an awesome ward. I didn't want the bishop of that ward I wanted to be clear about who I was and what was going on. So the first week or two, I went and sat down with him, and just really kind, treated really well. And I let him know that we were dating and that we had talked about marriage. And at that point, I could still attend and obviously not pray or do any of those kind of things, but I could contribute here and there where I could. And I play the piano. And so that is one thing that I love to contribute. I'd love to share my testimony of the Savior through music. And after I had made some friends in the ward, I was asked to play a musical number for Sunday school. And I went ahead and talked to the bishop, and he said, well, if you feel good about it, you can go ahead and do that. And so I thought about it. I felt good about it. And so I did go ahead and play the musical number. And I had a lot of people come up to me after that musical number and tell me that they were able to feel the Spirit and thank you for sharing and these kinds of things. And so I felt really good about where I was at that point. I'm like, there's going to be a place for me to be able to participate on some level and just be a part of the community that had really supported me and that I had supported through my life. And keep going, I guess. Okay. So,
yeah, go ahead. We're just riveted by the story. So how kind of your bishop to say, and so I guess maybe one question I have is, so you in this ward, you had, and I'm not sure, maybe you don't want to talk about this. It sounds like you might have had some different kind of ways that you were able to participate other than just anyone else. Is that what you're kind of trying to say? I'm kind of trying to be subtle.
Having been like in pretty significant callings before, I just enjoyed contributing. And so one thing to do is go get the chalkboard, because we held Sunday school in the chapel, and so they would let me go get the chalkboard for that. And then that musical number was really kind of the beginning of the end, though. Like, another thing that they allowed me to do was help with ward activities. And we had, as part of our ward Christmas party, I helped decorating. I love decorating. We went all out for that. Where I moved from, I did a lot of wedding decorating. And so we put up like a false ceiling in the gym. And
wow.
Fun thing. And I have a pretty extensive nativity collection. And so we set that up as part of the ward Christmas party. I set up my entire collection of nativities, and then people toured through that.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
It was really fun. I have like 40 or 50 different nativities from all over the world, all different, simple to very detailed, and through that process, I had people come to me through that experience of the nativities, and how spiritual it was, and how they could feel my love for the Savior and for Christmas and all of that through this display that I was allowed to set up.
And at this time that you're doing this, you're still an active member. Have you been disfellowshipped or anything else, or you're just not allowed to have the callings because the bishop has kind of limited you to those?
Yeah, so I hadn't been disfellowshipped at this point. We met periodically here and there, and just kind of seeing where my husband and I were at in our relationship.
Right. And you weren't married. When you say your husband, you weren't married at this time. You were single. You're still obeying all the commandments. You're you're in
dating.
good fellowship, you're in good standing with everything other than that you're dating another man.
Right.
And our relationship had progressed to the point where we were having a physical relationship.
Okay.
So I guess I was trying to understand why there might be restrictions on your participation. So it was because of dating, that kind of scenario.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, just trying to make that clear. Okay, I think we're up to speed. Okay. And that sounds wonderful. I just, how you describe your contribution, that's just beautiful. And I know that you must have touched so many people and they just loved you. I can just tell. So
Yeah.
it's just wonderful.
And then I thought, if I can just be involved, even not as a contributor for ward events, and just be there with these good people, that would be enough to keep me active, even if I was never able to have a calling or contribute in that way again, as far as an official calling.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what happened after the musical number? You said the beginning of the end. Oh my goodness.
So I don't know, the church membership, I think when they hear somebody that has a musical talent, it's like, oh, we need to share this with everyone. And so a couple of weeks, maybe 2 weeks after that, 2 weeks after the first musical number, I got a call from the ward music person to perform. It was Saturday, and I'm not sure exactly the circumstances, but the next day was ward conference, and she wanted me to perform in sacrament meeting at ward conference, which I was fine with. And so I tried to follow the established channels of priesthood authority within the ward before I accepted or agreed to do anything. And so I messaged the bishop and said, hey, I've been asked to do a musical number in ward conference. And is that okay? I mean, I feel good. I feel like this is some way I can contribute. And it was kind of unraveling at that point of the bishop, because he wasn't comfortable with me doing a musical number in that setting. And he asked that I can't remember if it was that Sunday or the next Sunday, to come into his office and talk with him. And so,
can I ask one question? As you're attending the ward and everything, are you taking the sacrament? Are you participating in that way along with the other things that you were doing?
no, I wasn't. I never took a sacrament again.
Okay.
I mean, really, I stopped basically when I was still elders quorum president in the ward, my prior ward. And when I came out to my bishop and my ex-wife, I knew the direction my life was heading. And I didn't take the sacrament after.
Okay. You just voluntarily said, I'm not going to be doing this anymore. Okay, that makes sense. So now you're on the radar, it sounds like. Now you've done this musical number and they want you to do another one, and now you're on the radar, and now he's asking you to come in. What happened next?
So we met, and then he said, I need you to go meet with the stake president and talk about the situation. And at this point, my husband now and we had, he right around Christmas time proposed to me, December proposed. And so we had a wedding date set, and it was not too far in the future. And so, of course, all the details as our relationship progressed, me being the naive, person that I was, just shared all the details and just went along. And, this is ultimately going to be for my best interest in the end. I was just really, I don't know. I'm a very trusting and obviously sheltered and naive person.
So when you say you shared details, you told your leadership. Is that what you're talking about? You let them know what was happening, and
yeah, I would go.
Yeah, you just said this is me in my life, and look what's happening. You're excited.
Yeah, you said I'm getting married, which for most times in Mormon church, that's everybody's yay, finally. But
and that's another thing that we can talk about is the reaction to marriage in that way. Anyway, I go in, and during all of this time, my husband now was attending with me, but he would stay out in the foyer, and I would be in the chapel or in the in elders quorum meeting or Sunday school, whatever it was that week. And he is a also very considerate and compassionate person towards how what he's doing is affecting other people. And so he didn't want people to be uncomfortable as they were worshiping, having a gay couple sitting next to each other in sacrament meeting. And I was fine with that. And he never moved his records into the ward that we were attending. We were living together at this point, and so he never moved his records or met with the bishop or anyone. Just he's more savvy as far as kind of things go.
Right.
And I go and meet with the stake president, and I just kind of tell him my story. I said our wedding is a couple weeks away, and he both the bishop and stake president said, well, the path you're heading down is basically you have two options. You can either resign from the church, or you can and that was my bishop told me this actually our first meeting. He said, well, the path you're heading down, you'll either have to resign or be basically excommunicated. And so I said, oh, okay, well, I don't really want that, but I thought in my naivety, I thought, well, once they get to really know me and know that I'm not a bad person, maybe I'll have the option just to be disfellowshipped or whatever. So the stake president presented me with the option of either resigning, in the near future, or having a disciplinary council, which he didn't come out and say it, but it was pretty clear that it would be excommunication, would be the result of that council.
So even though you want to stay and your soon-to-be husband is just fine with you staying and attending, there was no option for you that would allow you to stay. It's either resign or go through that extremely painful process. There was no way open to you that you could do what you really wanted to do, which is you're a believing, faithful Mormon, continue to worship and attend.
Right. And even at that point, like I had hinted at earlier, I'm like, well, even if I'm not a member, if I can still attend, maybe with a musical number here or there, or those, like the Christmas party or other events that I could help in, that would have been enough for me. And so I'll tell you what happened with that in just a minute. So so neither the bishop nor the stake president seemed to want to push the issue of the resignation or excommunication until after the wedding was official for us. And so I told them both when it was. And then after the date, I can't remember if I approached and told the bishop or if he asked me after, because I was at this point still attending every Sunday, And so in between the time we were married and 3 or 4 weeks late after we were married, I went in to meet with the stake president again, and was just said either you need to send the letter in, or we need to have a disciplinary council. And so my mom struggled a lot with the amount of time that the husbands had to spend at church away from their families, and the pain that she experienced from that, even though she was faithful, it stuck with me through my whole life. And so I obviously I was a ward clerk at one point, so I know how disciplinary councils work, and it can be pretty extensive, the time that's required. And so I decided to resign from the church, just to save that time for those men and their families. And after I got my letter back from the church, I was still attending. And so when it was official, the bishop wanted me to come in again, and the stake president was there. And I said, so what is the future in the church look like for me? I said, I want a clear understanding of what I've always been a rule follower. And so I'm like, I want it clear cut, what can I do? What can I not do? And so the things that I had done in that ward, there was, we went through one by one. And at the end of it, the stake president's opinion was that he just wanted a clear cut severance from me and the church. And so what I was allowed to do after that meeting was a sit in sacrament meeting and the other meetings. And if the board was having a ward potluck dinner, I could bring a dish. And that was the extent that they said I could participate in the ward. And so
you can't make a comment. You can't.
No comment.
Pray,
no.
I guess if you've resigned, no, but you can't even make a comment or interact. You can just kind of be there.
I can be there, and no contribution was allowed in decorating or setting up that scene. I specifically asked about that, or just any way.
So you couldn't work with a decorating committee, or you couldn't show up early and be with other people in the ward and help put decorations up or anything like that. You were just very much a part. You could be there, but really have nothing to do with it.
Yeah, be there, but just kind of as a participant and not help with anything. And so that hurt a lot. It was pretty surprising because this has, for me, this has not been that long ago. And so as I was coming out and through the whole process, I was hearing stories of what other men and couples were allowed to do. And I thought, you know, I am not like trying to shove this in anyone's face. I'm not trying to harm anybody with my decisions, and I'm not like showing up to church in rainbow things, although I don't think that's bad to do either. But I was in a shirt and tie, white shirt and tie, you know, just being there, participating and enjoying. And so I feel like I'm a good person, and had just found a lot of joy in serving in the church through my whole life. And I just didn't understand in the great plan for me why taking everything away was the best option for me versus other gay men.
So all you wanted to do was worship.
Yeah, I just wanted to be
And
there
serve.
and serve in some capacity.
Mhm.
It obviously there anything like connected to the sacrament or those kind of things were not options for me to serve. But I think that there could have been something for me. And, you know, if I can just speak to bishops or somebody that may have somebody in their congregation in the same situation as me, there has to be something. I mean, especially if they want to be there and contribute, there has to be something that you can include them in your board with. And I've often, I think a lot about things, and I think that what people need to stay is purposefully removed. Like back, it's been probably 8 or 10 years ago, or even longer than that. It was they need a friend, something to do, and
Yeah.
remember thing.
Community, I think, is the word. Community. I think the church has lost sight of that in many, many ways. But what fosters community, and that's why people stay. That's why they feel good. That's why they serve and worship. It's community.
And
But
so
what I hear you saying is you think they removed those things intentionally, just trying to get you to leave so that you didn't show up at all. Is that what I'm hearing? Or
yeah, that's kind of how I felt about it. Although the bishop, especially, because he had gotten to know me over the 8 or 9 months that I had been in his ward, was as the stake president said that it needed to be a clean cut. I could see pain in his face, in the bishop's face, because he had gotten to know me and knew that I wasn't like a harm to anyone.
No, I think about what you said. You and your partner sat outside. You didn't want to make anyone uncomfortable in case anyone would be uncomfortable with the two of you sitting together. You cared a lot about how people felt, and you went out of your way, whether you should have to do that or not, and you shouldn't, to make people comfortable. So this is very hard to hear. I'm just very sad.
We had made every effort to not affect the people around us with our relationship, and being married and all of that. And so
but your husband is still in, and he's still I guess he's still a member, at least. I don't know if he's still active. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, and tell us, just maybe pick up right after he basically told you there was no path forward. What did you decide to do then at that point? Did you attend without interacting? Did you take a potluck dish? How did you move forward from there? And then how did that affect you and your husband?
So in both the bishop, in my last meeting with the bishop and the stake president, they said that I would be able to kind of dictate what interaction I had with the ward as far as representatives coming to my home. And I said, please come. You're welcome in our home. We want to see you. And you're always welcome. Our home is open. And so anyway, I was pretty hurt by the fact that because I was a married gay man, there was no contribution I could make that was worthwhile. And so that hurt a lot. And I probably attended for 2 or 3 more Sundays after that happened. And then I could feel inside that just the pain that being there under those circumstances was causing me. I decided to stop attending the ward at that point. And anyway, it's been a while since I've been back, and nobody's come. The bishop or stake president has not come to visit or reached out in any capacity. Which I guess it goes back to that there's so many people to take care of. Why would the time be spent on somebody like me? And so I understand that. I guess I understand that, but
no, you shouldn't understand that. You would be a member of that ward, and you would be contributing, and you would be serving, and you would be worshiping, except for their actions. So,
and so back to my husband. So, like I said, he's more savvy with all of this thing than me. So he never moved his records into the ward or met with the bishop, although, like I said, he would sit in the foyer and listen and attend the meetings, and he came and actually helped me set up for that Christmas party that I was about, and he did attend that with me. But I guess he must have understood, or wasn't as naive as I was, that if he wanted to retain his membership, the path that I took was not going to do that, was not going to be his ability, or he wouldn't have the ability to remain a member if he did the same things that I was doing. And so, yeah. So that's why he's still a member, and why I'm an avatar and not using my real name.
Well, you're a very cute avatar. So he's attending, he's a member and attending a ward?
He's a member still, but doesn't attend.
Okay. Okay.
Just, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why he wanted to remain a member under the circumstances that we found ourselves in, but that was his decision. And then I will go back. There's a couple of details that I forgot to tell you. So they knew I was married now. It was in the last meeting with the bishop and the stake president. And they knew I was married now and that my husband was a member. And in that last meeting, I think they tried to, at this point, I wasn't a member anymore. I don't think, I can't remember, it's all fuzzy now, but I can't remember if I had received my letter back from the church or not. But they tried to to get my husband's information from me in that meeting, like his membership record and his birthday and all of that. And I said, no, if my husband wants to meet with you, he will come and talk with you, but it's not my position to rat him out so you can excommunicate him too.
So that's why you thought they were asking for the information, would be to try to initiate some kind of disciplinary process by finding out his name and birthday. Yeah. Why would you ask for the birthday? That's how you track someone's membership, right?
Yeah.
Said that they verbally said that, yeah, we need to talk with your husband about this situation. And I said, he'll come and talk to you if he wants to. And he's like, that's not how it works. I'm like, well, I'm not.
Well, good for you.
Good for you. It is how it works. They do not have authority over you. Oh my goodness. Wow. What did your husband think when you told him that? They're trying to get your name and your membership number?
I just said, well, his position was that basically what I shared with them, if he wanted to meet with them, or if he wanted to move his membership into the ward, he would do that. One also thing I forgot, I think, and this may be why, oh darn, that show on the screen, did you guys see what just popped up on my
No,
feed?
I didn't.
No.
Did something pop up?
I'm just not sure what. Can you only see my little
We
screen?
can only see the
we can only see your avatar. And we can go back and check it too to make sure, but I can only see the avatar. We'll check this section.
Yeah, if the message pops up or something, it won't show up. So.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, in that final meeting, I think I was my stake president that went through this with me's first gate experience, because in that meeting, he said that he had a phone call or a letter from Salt Lake stating that you can't give them the option to resign. You have to hold a disciplinary council. And so Salt Lake, according to what he told me, wanted him, even though I'm not a member at this point, to haul me back in for a disciplinary council.
Okay.
So you resigned and then
wait.
they wanted to excommunicate you after that.
Okay, let me understand. So your stake president gave you the option, as you discussed, to resign or have a council. You decided to resign to save everyone the hassle and the pain. Then they received a letter telling them that that's not how we do it. It has to be a disciplinary council.
Yeah, from Salt Lake.
From Salt Lake. And then they contacted you again and said, even though you have resigned, you still need to come back and put yourself through this.
The stake president told me that in that last meeting I had with him, that Salt Lake had told or mentioned or called or something and said that there needed to be a disciplinary council. And so when in that final meeting I had with them, they said that if I was to ever want to rejoin the church, before I could rejoin, there would need to be a disciplinary council to review all this stuff. And
this would be if you left your marriage and decided to return because you couldn't attend in your marriage.
So
that's kind of my story.
I think we're speechless, aren't we, Landon? I think we're speechless.
I've got one more question for Stephen. General conference is coming up. If they were to get up at the pulpit and say, the Lord has said that we will allow gay marriage in the church and welcome all members who are gay, would you return at this point?
I absolutely would.
Yeah, that was my guess for Stephen.
Yep, I would absolutely return, as long as there was something I could do, some way I could contribute to the ward. And because I'm a 5 love language service, and so to be somewhere and see needs and be restricted from being able to help other people because I'm at a church and I'm not a member, or I'm a gay man. It's just like, if I see somebody with a need, suffering, any way I can contribute, make people's lives better, I need to feel like I can help them and participate in helping those people. And that wasn't an option for me.
Yeah, no, your ward has, and your stake has lost a great deal by not allowing you to participate. Just the kind of person that you are, Stephen, just knowing you this short time, they have lost a great deal. Don't you feel that, Landon?
Oh, absolutely.
Immeasurable.
But I guess, Stephen, don't let the fact that they say you can't serve others to stop you from serving others, because there's lots of other places to serve than in the church.
Sure are. And I'm sure he knows
someone with your talent and your love has got to serve somewhere.
Yeah, I am still reeling from all of this, and like where I mean, when you're serving in these capacities, it's like another job, but it's all service. So there's really nowhere that you can have that level of engagement,
right,
that I'm able to find at this point outside of the church. I've often thought of finding a new congregation in a different denomination, but my heart and my beliefs are still unchanged, and so it's hard for me to even imagine doing that, being raised in the church and just still having those beliefs and that desire to be there and share. And anyway, it's been tough. So a lot to still process through. But yeah, I still remain positive towards the church. And obviously, as a co-parent, I don't want to damage that relationship for my daughter, or let her, I mean, she doesn't know about any of this or what I've been through. And so it's not like I have any animosity towards the church or want to tear it down or have anyone else be affected by what's happened to me, other than that sharing the stories may help a bishop or somebody down the road understand what happened to someone else, and maybe they can find somewhere for these men and women to fit in their ward. So
yeah, no, and you're very brave to do that. And I do think about that. I mean, first, of course, the story of Charlie Bird and his marriage celebrated everywhere. And of course, then attending his ward and taking the sacrament and having a calling on the activities committee, that made all of us just kind of take pause for a minute and try to understand this. And then kind of researching and looking around, we came across multiple other same-sex couples that most married that are serving in those capacities in wards and taking the sacrament. And so I feel like maybe these are individual bishops or leaders that have sort of taken a stand maybe, or are trying to make a difference. So I agree with you when you say if other bishops or people in leadership can listen to these personal stories and see how it impacts people and families and friends or anybody that loves you, which I'm sure there are many. And so I think it's incredibly important. Don't you think, Landon?
Well, yeah, except for the fact that your bishop or your stake president said he got a letter from Salt Lake. That would indicate that this is a church policy to do this, not local leadership that's doing
and
it.
like I said, I don't know that it was a letter more than proper
call or whatever,
protocol.
but
A
he
phone
was
call.
That was
instructed,
the
so he was either using the church as a fall guy and not telling you the truth, or he got that letter and someone's saying that this isn't the church policy, or no one's making it clear what the church policy
Right.
is evenly across all the different wards.
Right.
That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
exactly
and
right.
this story, like my family, my parents, my siblings, they don't know this story, because like I said, I don't want this. And as I went through this whole process, I like anyone like on my social media that I thought would be negatively affected through this process, I just stripped it down to the people that I was absolutely sure would be supportive of me. And yeah, I like I said, I don't want what's happening to me to damage anyone else's testimony or have that. But I do think that maybe it would be great if the church could come out and have a clear policy.
Yes.
And you know, the instruction that as I understand it's a case by case basis, and there will be inspiration as to what is right for this individual. And so I thought, well, I'm not doing any harm. I'm not trying to shove it in anyone's faces. So surely there will be somewhere for me. That's as I described my naivety and all of that in, you know, going through the process through the proper channels in the church. With that guidance was my hope that, you know, I am not hurting anyone. I'm not trying to push my lifestyle on anyone. So I was pretty sure there would be a place for me, but it didn't work out that way for me.
And I compare that again. I just have to use that example of Charlie Bird on social media, you know, with all of his wedding pictures. I mean, as far as being overt and letting everyone know as an influencer, you know, what they're doing and celebrating their marriage, which they absolutely should. And yet it doesn't seem like anyone from Salt Lake is calling their bishop and saying something needs to change. So again, what you said is very important. There needs to be some kind of clear policy so that people aren't left in the dark expecting one thing, thinking they can do one thing, and then finding out they can't. And I think that's what this podcast is all about. So your story is so important, and we just really thank you for coming on. I hope it wasn't too painful to share. I was feeling pain just hearing it, because you're just a wonderful person, Stephen. And I'm just so sorry that you're so kind that you felt that you didn't even want to harm people who might be harmed by hearing this, that, you know, and in that way, those people that might have been able to support you, you know, didn't have the chance, but you're just so considerate. Yeah, I can just tell right away, not knowing you very long, what kind of a person you are. Just wonderful.
Okay. Yes. So, well, thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah.
And hopefully this will help somebody along the way. I know as I was coming out, you know, I listened to some people's stories and it really gave me strength. So, but yeah, maybe this will give somebody the idea that it could go this way too, even absolutely the opposite way, where you're completely not able to do anything at all. And yeah, I just had a lot of hope, like I said, but it wasn't to be for me. So
well, we have hope too. And we'll all just keep hoping, won't we? Any final thoughts, Landon?
just appreciate your courage for coming on and sharing your story. It wasn't easy, and I know that you still believe and you're still a firm believer in the church. And so we really appreciate your willingness to share this story, even though it may not be a flattering story for anyone involved. So thank you for your courage.
Yeah.
You bet. Thank you.
So that was the last of our stories that we're presenting today. And as I said, Stephen, he was just such a lovely person. I mean, what you see there, we also talked to him at length before and after the podcast, and just such a wonderful person. He really had an impact on me. Did you feel that way, Landon?
Oh, such a humble person and such a Christ-like person. It was, as we talked to him, it was so fascinating to see that he resigned from the church, even though it was so important in his life, not because he didn't want to go through the process, but because he didn't want anyone else to have to do that, to excommunicate him and hold the court on him. He loved his bishop. He loved the people. And he said, I'll resign rather than make you go through this situation. And that didn't even necessarily pay off in the end when he tried to do that. So it was heartbreaking, but such a humble man. And hopefully, he finds a way that he can actively get back into what means so much to him in the church.
I know. And his description of how he used to participate before, I mean, everybody's the organist or they're the party planner. And I feel like overall the church seems to not give those people it's the place that they deserve. I looked at General Conference, which was just over the weekend, and everyone was, when I was in law school, when I was, finishing my business school. Nobody said, I'm an art teacher and I have this to tell. That side is missing from the church. And it's so important. Does no one remember the parable of the grasshopper and the ant? The ants can work to death, but you need the grasshoppers. And I feel in Lyle's case, especially when he talked about the party planning and the, just everything that he added, everyone is missing out by not having Lyle or Brittany and Jackie, or Austin and Dallin, or Tyler. They're missing out by not having these people contribute and just show them a different kind of experience. So yeah, we were really moved by Stephen's story, and I think that you guys really were too. So, and overall, as we looked at these stories and we sort of made the comparison, Landon, you came up with kind of a good list, I thought. There are many similarities and there are differences, which I think we can learn from both.
Yeah, one of the things as we talked to them that I noticed was a common thread was none of them were taking the sacrament. They'd all been asked or told that they were not allowed to take the sacrament. So what we're hearing that some people are being allowed to take the sacrament, that does not seem to be the rule with the people we talked to. In all cases, they were asked not to partake of the sacrament.
Right.
The other thing is none of them had official callings. They all seemed to have the ward found a way for them to participate. They kind of found end run around a calling and said, would you do this? Even though it's not an official church calling. So they did try to give them a place to serve, but it was certainly limited in what they could serve and what they could be called to. The other one was that one of the difference was the official status seemed to be fluid. In some cases, they were asked to resign. In other cases, they were excommunicated. In the case of Brittany and Jackie, they were excommunicated, and they said, that they weren't excommunicated for being married. They were excommunicated for law of chastity, and yet nobody ever asked them if they were breaking the law of chastity. They just assumed that they were, and excommunicated them anyway. So, and then you have people who have come back and are being welcomed in, and so. But there's no official nothing's been done. It's like it's been avoided. And then in the case of Austin and Dallin, they're just newly married in the last month. So there really hasn't been time to see what's going to happen, and they're moving to a new ward. And so, only time will tell on them. The one thing that we did see consistently was most all of them said they were welcomed and they were accepted and they were participating in the ward right up until they got married. And once they got married, that's when discipline started, and they started excommunicating them or asking them to resign. And so marriage, which seems so important in the church, has the exact opposite effect for LGBTQ couples, that seems to be what forces you the other way. So
it's a hard stop right there.
the one common thread was Bishop Roulette. As the leadership changed in their wards or in their stakes, that changed how they were treated or what the result was of, in some places they were perfectly welcome and felt good. All of a sudden there was a change and immediately changed.
It became an issue.
It became an issue. Yeah. And so that is something of concern. And to me, this is really the fact that the church has pushed this down to local leaders to make the decision. Why are you seeing different results? Because there's no policy from the church.
No direction.
No direction. And the general authorities are pushing this down and making the poor bishops and stake presidents deal with it with no guidance because they don't want to look bigoted in their treatment. They don't want to put an official policy out where they look like bigots. So they force it down to where they can, pull back and say, well, that was that local bishop that did it. That was his fault. If I were a bishop in this situation, I would turn around and say, they're perfectly welcome in my ward to take the sacrament. And maybe that's what's happening in Charlie's ward is the local leadership is saying, until you give me a policy, this is what I'm going with. And I think all bishops need to be that way. Why wouldn't you fall on the side of protecting those members that are in your ward that want to be active, that want to participate, and allow them to do exactly that? That's the way I would fall. I can't speak for all local leaders, but the church leadership is afraid to address this issue, and they're standing back and waiting, it seems, for a resolution before they speak, and they won't let Sherinigan speak. They won't let, they're not, the top is not going to tell the bottom how to deal with this situation. And in the meantime, these people are just,
they're left in limbo. Yeah, they're left in limbo is what they are.
What to do? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's complete cowardice from the top, I think. Even if there was an announcement that was negative, you can never participate. You can never be a part of the ward. At least people would then understand what that was. But as you saw from these stories, people are like, well, I think this might happen, or maybe it might be different here, or oh, it was this way, and now it's suddenly different. And it is the local leaders who I look at. I think that they are heroes. Look at the people that have tried to find a space, tried to carve a way out for everybody to participate. We also got the idea talking before and after that most feel the leaders, it's not their fault. Like how are they supposed to understand what to do? And they're not getting any direction or any guidance. And then you have these wonderful people in the wards. You have the ward members interacting. You have them learning to love these people, accepting them. And what is the church going to do at the top? I mean, that's the problem. This is growing. And we've seen statistics that there is so much increasing acceptance of, the LGBTQ community. And that's because everyone's just normal. You're in a ward together. You're loving each other. And so I predict that eventually when there is some kind of statement to try to stop everything from the top, people are going to say, no way, no way. That's not happening to our friends, because that's what they have become now. So I think it'll backfire on them. But in the meantime, you see these people just being jerked from, like, oh, we're loved in this ward. Oh no, the bishop changed. Now we're disciplined. Oh, we're looking for a place. It's good. Oh no, now there's a change. Or there, I don't know if the rest of us can picture living like that. I don't think we can really understand how that must feel.
Yeah, I agree. And the church is not going to come out with a clear statement because the church can see where this is going. The one consistent thing we saw through this was the ward members were accepting and loving and wanting the people there.
Yes.
It's the leadership that's stopping it. And in Mormon parlance, I guess you would say, that means Jesus doesn't want these people. It's Jesus that doesn't want them.
God doesn't like you.
God doesn't want them. That's what we'll hear from the 12 when they finally make the change.
Yeah.
Oh, we wanted you, but God wouldn't let us. And now
because
God
the priesthood ban. Yes. We heard that of the priesthood ban. They said those words. We wanted to change it forever. It was God. Yeah. No, nobody bought that. Nobody believed that.
If there's anything this episode changed my mind, it was that the membership is ready for this.
Yes.
The membership is accepting
Yep.
this. It's the leadership that's putting the hold on it. And to me, it's just a matter of time. They have to make the change, because the members aren't going to see these sweet people. Look at these wonderful people,
Yeah.
and stand by and
Yep.
watch them mistreated like this,
Yep.
when they could step forward and say, leaders, it is time
Yep.
to make this change.
It's time. I think we've seen it with families absolutely embracing their children and family members that are part of the LGBTQ community. We've seen it with family. Used to be different, right? We talk about this in the 80s. The parents kicked the kids out, right? Not anymore. The family rallies around. And now, not just friends and family members, but now the community, your ward community, your ward family. I think about Tyler's story, how they were invited into 2 homes, if I remember correctly, to stay when they didn't have a place to go. He and his husband. Think about Oaks, how he said, if your own children, in a same-sex relationship, come home to visit, don't let them stay. Don't let them stay very long. I mean, this is ridiculous. And this is counsel from the top. Yet these ward members are saying, forget that. They can totally stay. They need a place. So charity, love, I have faith in that. I have confidence that among the members of the church, not so much at the top.
Well, and what we're going to hear is the same thing we always hear. The Lord has to make this change.
Yes.
And we're going to get all kinds of comments. You people don't speak for the Lord. The Lord
Yeah.
makes changes. We all know that the thing that
Yeah.
is stopping this from happening right now is that 15 men have to all vote the same way.
Yep.
And some of those men are not willing to vote that
Yep.
way. We're not asking Jesus. Jesus is one man vote. We only need one vote, from the top.
Right.
But no, they'll, just like with the blacks and the priesthood,
Yep.
they're going to have to wait for these men to die to where all 15 of them can agree. And how many of them are in line before that happens is really the difference before this is going to change. But this change is going to happen.
It is going to happen. It absolutely is. And everyone we talk to believe it is too. And I believe it's sooner than later. We've also heard behind the scenes that there is a lot of difference in opinion within upper leadership in the church on this. Just like the priesthood ban, there are vast differences of opinion, and they're trying to work it out. And I kind of feel the general authorities that are sent out to meet with wards and meet with people and talk one-on-one with bishops and stake presidents, I feel like those men are hearing this, and they're hearing the bishops and stake presidents going, what am I supposed to do with this wonderful couple? They're incredible. How are you expecting me to shun them and cut them off? I think they're hearing it. I think they see it. I think the Q15 don't see it. They're more isolated, but I think even among them, there are those that also understand it has to change. So unfortunately, you have this consensus thing, and you're right, Landon. I feel that some of them will have to pass away, just like in the priesthood ban. That is what have to if you want to see how this is going and how it's going to happen, study the politics behind the priesthood ban, the lifting of the priesthood ban. We did an episode on it where we touched on it. There's a wonderful book by Matt. Oh my gosh, what's our favorite professor who always, what? Harris, Matthew Harris. Sorry, I had a brain cramp. That's coming out, I believe, in just a month or so, about the politics behind lifting the ban. You read that, you will see how these things have happened, and you will see how they will happen in the future over the LGBTQ issue. I absolutely 100% believe that.
Yep. There's no different. This is how revelation works.
That's how revelation works.
So once you understand that, it will change. And so that's the positive side that I got out of this. The heartbreaking side to me was to see people who love this gospel, love this church, love what they're doing. It means so much in their life, and they're asked to leave it and to not follow it because of who they love.
Yep.
That is the most unchristian thing I've ever heard. Because you love this person, you now can't love Jesus. You can't love Jesus in another person. That's absurd. It doesn't meet any of the requirements of a Christian lifestyle. So, and in every case, you see these people are picking love over institution.
Yep. And unfortunately, I feel for every case you see that, you will see people that don't. And that is really sad. And it's such a wasted resource as you see the time and the talent and the willingness to give in just these 4 stories. Multiply it by thousands. The church is really missing out. And I hope it doesn't go too much longer. I hope they can figure this out and that everybody could be included if they would like to be. That's what I'm saying. If you would like to, there should be nothing stopping anybody. So anyway, we could go on, couldn't we, about this? But this was quite a meaningful experience for us at Mormonish to be able to meet all of these wonderful couples, talk to them, hear their stories. Again, we want to thank our friend Brian, who just did an incredible job of reaching out and talking to people and telling them there's this podcast over here. They want to do this, don't be scared. They really have good intentions and they want to, just like Landon said at the beginning, shine a spotlight. So we thank you guys for hanging in and watching. Please comment. Did you learn anything you didn't know from any of these couples' stories? What do you think about these wonderful couples? What do you see as far as the change? When do you think this will happen? If it will happen, we really want to start this dialogue. We want to be louder about this. We want everyone to be louder about this because that's how change happens in the church. We all recognize that. So please like and subscribe to Mormonish Podcast. And if you'd like to be made aware of when new episodes come out, you can hit that notification bell and we'll let you know when the new ones drop. Just in case anybody is curious, we do drop an episode every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Mountain Time and every Friday morning at 11 a.m. Mountain Time. And these are all what are called premiere episodes where you can join us in the live chat and talk to quite often our guests and to us and to others who are watching. So I think I should start adding that so that people can find us and know the time that we broadcast. So if you would like to help financially support Mormonish Podcast, we have links in the show notes to Venmo and PayPal and mormonishpodcast.org. By the end of any episode, I can hardly speak because I've spoken so much, but we sure appreciate all of you guys that do help us financially. It just means so much to us. And we also have a new link in the show notes, and that is to our Mormonish merch. We have mugs and water bottles and hats and all the kind of fun merch that everybody has. So if you'd like to support Mormonish in that way, you can grab some of that. So thank you again so much. And thank you to our wonderful couples. Thank you to Austin and Dallin. Thank you to Tyler. Thank you to Brittany and Jackie. And thank you to Stephen. You are making a difference by your bravery in sharing your stories. So thanks everybody from Mormonish Podcast. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Mormonish. We really appreciate our listeners and would love to hear from you if you have a story you'd like to share. You can email us at mormonishpodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and on our website, mormonishpodcast.org. And don't forget to look for us on YouTube and like and subscribe. Keep joyful, everybody.